Welcome back to the 288th episode of the DailyFlip podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and today we're going to be flipping through basically a whole bunch of stories around one story. You know exactly what we're going to be talking about. And I'm not going to do my normal intro part, and we're not going to do the daily debate. Put your comments down there or whatever, any of the things that you don't like, that you do like what I'm about to say. I've been thinking on this one for quite some time. I had multiple conversations. I ranted with multiple people I know. I made something immediately after it happened, before midnight, and I decided not to put it out. It felt like I was doing something scummy, that I was taking advantage of a terrible situation where not only was a presidential candidate shot at, which represents something so deep about the state of America, but somebody lost their life. I believe there were two other injured. So it felt terrible to put out what I was going to put out, which was something that goes beyond just talking about the incident, just providing the news of the incident. I was going to say something, and I'm going to say something tonight. I've thought on it, like I said. Or I'm recording this the night I've just listened to Biden's speech, his Oval Office address, and this is going to come out on Monday, so things can obviously change. But I want to talk about the political aspect of this. I'm going to put on my political hat, and that's why I felt terrible to put it out. But this is something that most definitely needs to be out there, especially with a lot of the commentary that I have heard over the course of the last day. And a lot of people are not going to like this. I understand no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you're probably not going to like some of the things I say throughout the course of this, but I think we need a little bit of a reality check here. Okay. A president who has been repeatedly, a former president who has been on the campaign trail, has been repeatedly attacked by different institutions, people being called a threat to democracy. And then you see a response from people who are on that president's side, who goes out and say the exact same thing about the current sitting president. And the rhetoric, as you have heard a million times, you've heard this language, the rhetoric has gotten hotter and hotter and hotter, and it just keeps on rising. It keeps on getting worse. And this is inevitable. This is inevitable. When we live in a system where we cannot see other people as human beings, when we cannot look beyond the next election, when we keep spitting out the idea that this is existential from both sides of the aisle. This is language that has most definitely been used more by one side, and some of the people that make commentary about it in the media have said things that make me extremely angry. But then you see a response in kind from other people who make the exact same comments. And they say, oh, no, it's not actually this. It's this other person that is actually the existential threat. Don't listen to this one, that, or the other. And we are going to pause right here because I do obviously have to add the addendum. The actions of the shooter were his own. I will not mention his name on here. I know some people have made a special exception. It's not happening. He's not getting the notoriety from me. He's not getting any of the infamy from me. Whatever he wanted, he's not getting it from me because he tried to take a shot at a president and he ended up killing a citizen who was just there trying to use his ability in a free country to express himself. He was protecting his family, apparently. And no, we're not giving him any of the fame that he wants here. He will go down as a blank spot in the history books, in my opinion. The way forward here is not to blame every single person who has been stoking the flames. Okay? It's going to be easy. It's going to feel like the right way to go, to feel that anger, that passion. And I'm speaking specifically to the people in my audience who I know are supporters of Donald Trump, who are conservative in nature. I understand that this is a moment of pure anger, of looking at exactly what has happened over the course of the last 6 months, over the last year, over the last 4, over the last 8, and saying this is the culmination of what happens when you call somebody the end of our democracy, when you cannot take a step back and understand that things will go on. And for the people who are more liberal leaning, who are more democratic leaning, and are seeing these things, and they're saying to the fact that the rhetoric was raised by Donald Trump, and that this was an inevitable response, and that he does represent a problem for our nation. If you believe that, and you are stoking the flames, not just using your voice and you're trying to stoke the flames, and you're actually trying to go out there. And I've had multiple people that I've seen videos online, those online people who are making the comments that, you shouldn't have missed. Those are far and few between. Even if you've seen a million of them in your feed, no matter who you are, they are far and few between. They are random people online who are unhinged, who have no understanding of maybe a little bit of decency, but I have still heard people within my life, around me, over the course of the day, who have made comments, and maybe they're joking about it, maybe they're trying to get it off their chest, but they've made comments where, oh, well, we were close. He was close. It's not a good thing, but he was close. It would have totally changed the direction of the country, and don't say it with gravity, but because they just don't like Donald Trump. And this is not the way to approach any sort of discussion within our country, okay? We need to take a step back. We have to understand. And I wanted to write something that I was going to submit to a few different opinion articles. And I wrote down a note on Friday night before any of this had happened. I said, write a summary of why the election is not the end of democracy. I'm just gonna tell this story here. I'm not gonna do it in a piece anymore. I'm gonna tell this story here. On the morning of Donald Trump being elected, this is when I was back and I was younger and I didn't understand certain things. I had a very different perspective about the world. I woke up and there was a look of glee on the people around me, and they said he won, and I said, no, you're kidding me, really? No. And I had thought about it, and I was not okay with the idea of Donald Trump being president. I was shocked. I was in my own head for a majority of the morning. I wasn't super politically engaged at that point. And I went into school, and this is the contrast of two different messages. What I was believing, what I was holding in my heart, what I was saying that this is a terrible moment for America. And then I would go into history class, and my history teacher knows the significance of the moment. He understands how people are feeling. He can tell that maybe some people are elated, some people are sad. And he says, this is not the end of the world. Life will go on. There will be another election, and things will not be that bad for you. And I didn't understand what it meant at the time. I didn't truly believe it at the time, but life did go on. Life kept going on. 2020 came around. I was a totally different person. Donald Trump lost. And I look back on that moment and I said, you know what? He was right. That is what we need to hold. We need to hold that in our hearts and understand that there's going to be another election. There's going to be another chance at this. Our institutions in this country are strong, no matter how much you don't like any of them. Whether you think that Donald Trump was a person who tried to completely flip them on their head during January 6th, the institutions held, okay? And if you don't like the decisions that come out of a political party, think about Roe v. Wade. The overturning of Roe v. Wade is one of the greatest examples of American institutions working in the favor of people who put in the time and know how to actively seek change, because it was a 40-plus year battle in the courts. There were organizations that were built up around this that were informing, educating people on a different point of view about the Constitution, and guess what? At the end of the day, there was change. Okay, so just because one person gets into office, just because another person gets into office, one party or the other, it doesn't mean that things can't change in the future. It doesn't mean that you have to sit in your dread and say life is over. You know how many times every single person has made a joke about, I'm moving I'm moving to a different country. Or the serious comments from people, I'm moving to a different country. You know how many times people have made jokes like that? You know how many times those people have actually moved away? Very seldom. Very, very seldom. Because this is the greatest country in America. We have freedoms here that people across the world do not have. Maybe there are certain instances where they're on par. You can't necessarily argue with the economic growth that we've had in this country in the past. You want to talk about standards of living? Fair enough. All of these things, you could make arguments about the modern day. The ideal of America has inspired multiple countries, has inspired millions upon millions, if not billions, of people around the world. And we need to come together as Americans underneath that flag. If you have seen the image of Donald Trump pumping his fist underneath the American flag, that will be an iconic photo that will go down in history because it symbolizes that we are strong underneath the flag. People will project many different things on it, but it symbolizes the fact that we are strong underneath that flag. We have to come together. And as I started earlier, this is the part that people aren't going to like. If you are a conservative, if you're a Republican, your anger is justified. Your righteous indignation is justified. But be the bigger person. Do not do anything. I would say don't even try to spur on hateful rhetoric. Okay? And I understand. You're going to sit there and say, Alex, it's not fair. They did this. Or you're going to say, at least the flames were stoked. Or blah, 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 blah. I'm honestly, I don't care what your rejoinders are because you have to be bigger. Righteous indignation is what will take this message forward, not anger, vitriol, hate. Okay? Do not become, because the media has already started. The media has already started saying in multiple different instances that Donald Trump's rhetoric afterwards was not enough to call for no violence. So remember there were multiple statements put out by Donald Trump. I'm going to read the first one, and that's the one that a lot of people responded to. Quote, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of the law enforcement for the rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed and also to the family of another person who was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through my skin. Much bleeding took place. So I realized then what was happening. God bless America. And people have already come out and said this is not enough. It's not condemning political violence. And obviously, I condemn political violence. Sorry, did I not start with that addendum? I thought it was just obvious because we live in America where this should not be something that happens. I take that back. I actually, I don't want to get lost on this, but I have interacted with people in my days, educators, who said that political violence in some instances is okay. I'm not saying that they're saying this instance would be okay. I'm not trying to ever say that. But statements like that were crazy to me because no, political violence is not okay. Period. Full stop. At least in our democracy, we need to have standards. And when the people who do not like Donald Trump have made comments about this, saying it's not coming out strong enough, did he incite this because of his rhetoric? One, if you're going to say that he incited this because of your rhetoric, you got to take a really long look in the mirror. But two, no, okay? People's actions are their own, and do not get that twisted. You can make arguments about stoking. You can make arguments about environment. You can make arguments about influence. Sure, fair enough. People's actions are their own. And you know this shooter? We don't know the political affiliation yet. We know he gave money to one thing. We know that he's registered as a Republican. There are a million different aspects here. Guess what? None of them matter. None of them matter. Because at the end of the day, if you are a person who is responding to this, you're going to come in with your own biases. Republicans are going to believe that he's secretly this, that, or the other. Democrats are going to take one thing and run with it. Everybody's going to have their own narrative. So guess what? Everybody just needs to calm down and chill. If you are a conservative, if you are a Republican, do not let your actions, anything you do, anything you say be misconstrued. Do not be a person who fits the mold of who they are casting Donald Trump supporters, conservatives, to be. And yes, I understand conservatives, Republicans don't have to be Donald Trump supporters. So I'm not trying to say that. And if you are a Democrat, take a second. If you're a liberal, take a second and talk to a person who is a conservative, who is a Republican, and say, hey, sorry to see something like this happen. We condemn political violence. That's all we need to do. Because guess what? And I say all that we need to do. It's actually really easy for me to say that. Just say something nice and we'll see each other as human beings. Because I've already seen the split come out. Over the course of the day, the commentators have already been saying, no, this is squarely at the feet. And let's be clear, they all say the same thing, or at least a lot of them say the same thing. After a lot of these tragedies, that the actions of the shooter is their own. This is 100% true. The action of the shooter is their own. And we cannot have double standards on this, and we cannot try to remove agency from anybody who does something morally reprehensible and terrible, because we're going to get into a yelling and screaming match, and then we start blaming other people. And I know I said it's easy to come together, but we need to at least try and see the human being across from us, see the fellow American. This has been I don't want to say the joke, but it has been a talking point for a long time, which is we have to see each other as Americans. And this is why Donald Trump has a moment here where this next statement that he put out, I think, is perfect. And I think the campaign, that why they're on lockdown, why they're silent, is because they are thinking about how to properly use this moment. And I'm being a political analyst, okay? Which is, you have to take this moment to appeal to the moderates. He already has his base. He already has his base. His base is fired up. They're passionate, okay? You do not want to stoke them. You want to appeal to the moderates and say, I was fighting for this country. I am putting my life on the line. I could have been out of this race. I have been prosecuted. And even if you believe that I am rightly prosecuted, I continued on, and I am trying to make sure that American values are fought for. That moment underneath the flag, that picture underneath the flag, that's what I'm fighting for. And I'm going to continue doing it for you. And if you, the people that are already leaning Trump, you can say, I took a bullet for you. The other moderate people this is how much some people do not want me to be in the White House. You could probably take that tact, and it would probably appeal to some like some libertarians or some non-government / big institution kind of people. And for the other moderates who are looking at the situation, they can look at even Biden's response, even his speech in the Oval. He said the right things. He really did. He came out and said the right things. Did he say them as articulately as he could have? No. But he at least said the right things. But his age is still showing. This is a moment where Biden was trying to change the narrative, and the narrative has completely changed. And if he was perfect tonight, it would have leveled the playing field. I said that Biden is not leaving. I said that nothing's really changing on that front before I've made that prediction. I think that some age questions will still come out. And when you have the juxtaposition of the image of Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, holding his fist up, American flag behind him after being shot and bloodied, and then you have Joe Biden even flubbing, almost saying "Make America Great Again" in his speech and showing his age, you're going to win over some of those people who are hesitant, who want a strong leader. So what was the message that he put out? The second one that I think was very well done. Quote, "Thank you to everyone for your thoughts and prayers yesterday." This was early this morning. Actually, technically it was yesterday morning because I'm recording this late at night so I could actually hear the speech from Biden. Quote, "As it was God alone who prevented the unthinkable from happening, he will," so that was a pause, "we will fear nothing, we will fear not, but instead remain resilient in our faith and defiant in the face of wickedness. Our love goes out to the other victims and their families. We pray for the recovery of those who were wounded and hold in our hearts the memory of the citizens who was so horribly killed." In this moment, it is more important than ever that we stand united and show our true character as Americans, remaining strong and determined and not allowing evil to win. I truly love our country, and love you all, and look forward to speaking to our great nation this week in Wisconsin. Prayer emoji, Donald Trump. There you go. Okay, the comments that came out from Trump Jr., which is we won't let the radical left have its way. He could be making specific statements about the person who was the shooter. We didn't know. He didn't know at that time, so I think he was probably making a more broad generalization. But that kind of thing is not going to fly. This is perfect. This is appealing to every single American, because I promise you that more than 90% of people who, when they heard the news, there was a drop. There was a drop in their stomach. I'm not saying that it lasted forever. I'm not saying everybody was instantly on the same page. But I'm telling you that pit in your stomach that you felt when you heard the news, or that moment of shock, that was shared across this nation by every single American. Because whether you like it or not, he is a former president. Whether you like it or not, he is the current leading Republican candidate. And this would change history. This would be a tipping point. And maybe you were deeply afraid because you believe that when something like this happened, and if he was dead, there would be riots in the streets. Maybe you were really scared because you thought he was actually dead and that the candidate for the Republican side of the aisle is gone. I don't care. I don't care, because that feeling, elections are about feelings. And that feeling is something that all of America shared. And Donald Trump didn't come out with his second statement and try to make it about left-right. He said that we are all Americans. That is the uniting message that he needs. If the Republican Party goes forward and they are not idiotic and they are not trying to actively divide and they are trying to bring more people in, which is literally what they did with the RNC new platform. I talked about it, how it's more Trumpy. They're getting rid of certain aspects of the platform that used to be very conservative. I mean, a Republican from the 1990s would say, whoa, Social Security, Medicare, we're not even going to touch that? Abortion's not even on there? What? But no, they're trying to go out to the broadest base possible. They're trying to get the moderates. They've been letting Joe Biden do his own thing over the course of the last week and not coming out and being so angry towards him, but rather saying, hey, it was a bad debate performance for him. And that was even a leaked video, and making comments about immigration, keeping the focus on the issues that people care about, or at least have some resonance with his base. This is the path forward. If Republicans and conservatives want to win, like I said, please do not do anything. This is for both sides of the aisle. If you're a person who is absolutely terrified and you don't want it to happen, please remember, every single person, no matter what their political affiliation, is a child of God. Every single person has a soul. Every single person that you are angry at has their own emotions too. Even if a person is clinically insane, there may be something else going on inside their brain, and we should feel pity for them. My point is, you need to look across at the person, and I take that back, the group. You don't even have to think about one individual person. You can just think about the group across from you and understand that they're not so dissimilar from you. Their experience in life may be totally different. This is the whole point of a pluralistic democracy, that we are all human beings, and that's what can tie us together. We all live underneath this flag. That's what can tie us together. Isn't that the beauty of America? If we're truly working towards a pluralistic democracy, which I think is honestly inevitable, whether you like it or not, but those are the ideals that are espoused by lots of different people throughout the United States. And some of those people also say that, this group, that group, across the aisle, they just demonize the other group. Okay? That is not how we go about our politics. That is not how we go about changing this country for the better. This is not how we go about making this country work for everybody that we can. This is not how you go about politics. I hope, I pray that we can actually learn from this moment. I hope and pray that 7/13 will go down in history as a moment where we came back together. Because this is something that, I take that back. I pray it will happen, but I was going to say it's something that could do it. No, it's not. Because I've looked through the commentary. I've heard the different points of view from multiple different people. There are those who will not let this go, that are so angry that Donald Trump has been persecuted for so long, and they have been saying that the other side is ratcheting up the rhetoric, and then nothing is out of the question. There have been jokes. There have been comments from people that I know personally that something's going to happen to Donald Trump. And then you have another side who they're sitting there saying he is an existential threat to our nation. And they genuinely believe, there are people that genuinely believe that. Just like there are people that genuinely believe on the other side that Joe Biden is an existential threat. We have to have empathy for everybody who believes that, because remember what I said at the beginning. Elections will happen. It's not the end of American democracy. I'm sorry. I am sorry if you think that American institutions are fragile enough to be destroyed, like a lot of people are commenting. But no, okay, it's click farming. I'll be honest, it's click farming. There was another professor in my life. I'm not going to name him, obviously, but he said to me in the intro to college class, because I had transferred in, and it was basically a gen ed credit at the very beginning. He said that I believe the American democracy will continue on for centuries. And I kind of giggled at that time. I laughed because I was in the middle of the craziness that was happening during COVID and everything like that. And I giggled. I said, okay, sure. Whatever you say, boss. And with how rhetoric keeps ratcheting up, I could see a world where you genuinely believe that's not possible. But messages like this, messages from every common day American who goes to church with Republicans and Democrats, libertarians, Green parties, Reform Party type people from England. I don't know what the technical equivalent would be here of an actual party that is on that side of things. But my point being, actually, there was a Reform Party, so maybe that actually does work. There was one that Trump actually ran for that in 2000. I thought it was interesting when, never mind. I'll come back to that at another point and we'll do an analysis of that. We are going a little bit long-winded here. My point being that we go to church, we go to businesses, we go to the gym with people of all different strands. Guess what? We can get along just fine. Politics doesn't have to be the center of it. You know, I talk about politics all the time. Politics is part of my job. I love talking about politics. But that doesn't mean that you have to let it consume your life. You can still have great personal relationships with people, or even just friendly interactions without worrying about what somebody else's politics are. Period. Full stop. Because at the end of the day, their politics don't define them. Okay? I'm a person who has XYZ politics. I'm not XYZ person. I got other aspects. You know what I did today as well? I watched both of the soccer games. I love soccer. Soccer didn't get political. I love technology. I love watching technology podcasts. I love watching technology videos. I'm an AI enthusiast. I like walking. I like going to the gym. There are plenty of things that do not define me beyond my politics. And that is what we have to remember here. Because at the end of the day, we are all Americans. I don't know how many times I've said that over the course of the last year and a half. How many times I've genuinely meant it when I'm across from somebody I genuinely disagree with, but I say, hey, we're both Americans. And their responses sometimes are frustrating. Sometimes they're amazing. Sometimes they say, yeah, we are. Sometimes people get frustrated with me, but guess what? It has never devolved into violence, because I'm not saying that my example is the absolute truth of the matter. What I'm saying is if we both see the human aspects of other people, if we don't live in these online worlds where everything is depersonalized, if we see people face to face, if we look in their eyes, we feel their pain, we understand how they are processing different pieces of information and how they think, then there is hope to see more to them than the things that you don't like and the things that you can't stand. And this goes for everybody. For people ratcheting up the rhetoric, saying that XYZ person is like XYZ person. XYZ person is using terrible rhetoric. XYZ person is a terrible human being. On all sides of the aisle. Stop. 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 You may honestly be right. I'm not saying you can't make moral claims, okay? I'm not saying that you can't make honest analysis of people. What I'm saying is give it a breath, and before you say it, actually understand. Qualify it. Lay it out. Make sure you make a coherent argument, and don't just haphazardly throw it out there. We do not live in a time and era where you can just say half booty things. You can just say half things that are kind of true, and you just say, no, there's not really weight here. Oh, no, I have the ears of millions of people. No, what I say isn't really that important. I can just kind of half say something without qualifying it, without saying it's a joke. We all have to be responsible. We live in an age where anything can go viral. You know what? You are held to account all the time now. People go back and look through your social media from years ago, and you get canceled because of it. Because if you had a certain policy back then that they didn't like, oh no, I'm not going to hire you. You had a policy back in the day, it's drummed back up, and you run through the media, you run through these different channels. I'm sorry, we live in a time where responsibility is even more necessary than previous. And guess what? You have to take the onus on yourself. If you want to see the change in this country, be the change in this country. Why do you think I'm not trying to make this about me, but this is why I spent so much time. I thought about what I was putting out yesterday, why I thought about it today, because it's uncomfortable. I'm asking you to be a responsible human being. I'm asking you to think beyond one moment. I'm asking you to look into the future and ask, is my future self going to be okay with that? Am I going to regret what I'm doing, what I'm saying, how I am mischaracterizing and labeling somebody falsely? Am I dividing, or am I trying to bring us together? Am I actually engaging in good conversation and allowing other people to spread their ideas and share their thoughts? Or am I trying to shut them down and clam their mouth? All of these need to be at the front of your mind. I understand. I say dumb things all the time. And you can say dumb things in person. But when you go online, when you're already depersonalizing things when you go on the internet. If you're in person and you could say some dumb things, you could take it back, you can understand. People can see when you messed up. People can see it in your eyes. You go online and you are completely tearing things apart. You're tearing away the social interaction aspect of human-to-human communication. Now it's screen-to-human communication. It's so much easier to become indignant at words when you can't see what it does to the other person. It's so much easier to castigate somebody else when there's nobody there to actually take it. Saying that somebody's morally reprehensible to their face versus saying it about them on the air or online are two totally different things. All I'm asking for is common sense. I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. The cynical part of me knows it's going to fall on deaf ears. There's still going to be the people that want to misconstrue things and use it to their own advantage. But for those of you who genuinely want to be better, for those of you who have listened to this point, thank you. And I really hope that we can be the change. I'm putting a message out there for you. Reach out to one person. Have a conversation with one person about it. I don't agree with some of the people I had conversations with about it today. I don't. I did have some moral indignation too. I said, hey, you shouldn't say that. That's not okay. Even if they were joking. But you still have to see that they're human beings. You have to sit across from the table at them. Whether it's, like I said, at church, whether it's at the dinner table, whether it's over Thanksgiving turkey, we have to actually want it. We can't just talk about it. You have to put in the effort. And I am sorry that we live in a chronically online world, but go out and touch grass. go out and find somebody you disagree with. Have a cordial conversation, because once you have one cordial conversation, you destroy the thought process that, oh, you can't have any cordial conversations. There are multiple people in my family that I totally disagree with. We totally disagree on so many things. And guess what? I for a long time, I just stopped. I didn't want to have a conversation. And then I came back and I had a conversation. They pointed out holes in mine. I pointed out good arguments and holes in theirs and in their point of view. And guess what? The world goes on. The world goes on. Okay? It does not have to be an existential threat. This election, the next election, the one after that, it's going to keep going. This is not the end of democracy. It is not the end of America. Our institutions are not that weak. We have survived almost 250 years now. We have survived for that long. We have had assassination attempts before. We have had presidents who are actively in office assassinated. We have had riots and division across the country in multiple different areas. We have had entire sections of the population under the thrall of another section of the population, and when freed, we were better. Now, I understand that all of these things feel like they were really far away. All of these things feel like they're not as momentous, they're not as big as this moment. But trust me, I'm not saying that they're exactly equal. What I am saying is that our generation, our parents' generation, the generation before that, all of us Americans who have been here have been through incidences before, and they have led us to moments where we can define ourselves. Do we want to define ourselves that one incident like this can rip our country apart, or do we want to show the American resolve that we have in our hearts that have defined this country since the beginning of our founding? I beg of you, every single person that has made it this far, every person that has listened, be the better person. Take the moral high ground. It's going to be hard. It's going to freaking suck. You're going to feel angry, but you will be better off for it. And I promise you our country will be too. And make sure that every single person you talk to about it, you try to at least convey the exact same message. I understand politically, sometimes you feel like you're going to get rolled over if you do it. Sometimes you just roll over. Sometimes you just roll over, okay? Because at the end of the day, and I'm not saying that you actually agree with them. I'm not saying they're 100% right. What I'm saying is you don't need to necessarily take on certain fights. Sometimes they're going to be so inconsequential, it's not actually going to change anything. Sometimes those conversations that are going to get overly heated because nobody's going to change their mind, please step away. I understand that there are battles that you feel as though you can't give up. If you have a great passion about them, keep on going, keep on trucking, fight for what you believe in. But the inconsequential ones, no. De-escalate, chill, and remember, they are a human being standing across from you. Or on the other end of a screen. Maybe, or also, if you want to think about it this way, maybe it's a bot. Any comment you don't like, anything you think is outrageous, just pretend it's a bot. Oh yeah, it's a bot. Yeah, no, I'm not even gonna take the time to engage. I'm not gonna worry about it. Because we have to come together. And being divided is not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to make anything better. It's not going to make that existential dread that everybody says they have from one side or the other. It's not going to make that go away. What's going to make it go away is understanding that you can be the change. Understanding that you are doing your active part. Understanding that there are other people on the other side doing the exact same thing. Building bridges, not burning them down. So I know I said I was going to talk from multiple articles, and I didn't end up doing that. So the articles that I had intended to read from, they will be linked in the description. Also, the repost on Twitter of the Truth Socials that I read will also be in the description below the like and subscribe button. I also have a Daily Delight down there that I intended on reading and making people's lives more positive. It's about a cute dog couple, dog brother and sister who come together, and they thought they weren't going to be able to exist, the parents, at first, and then they were able to actually love each other. I think it's emblematic of what we need to do and how we need to come together. If you want to read that entire thing, Like I said, it's all in the description below that like and subscribe button. If you want to check out the podcast on Spotify, Pocket Cast, or Podvine, links are also down there. So thank you for joining me for this episode of the Daily Flip podcast. I hope everybody's doing well. My prayers will go out to anybody that is reeling from what happened on Saturday on 7/13. And my prayer also goes out to all the Americans, because don't let the politicians, don't let the media, don't let the talking heads, don't let any of them affect you. We are the people that will make the change. We can be the positive influence that we want to see in America. So with all that said, there's only one more thing to say. Stay safe. Don't die.